나이공사 제18회 세계 해양 포럼.
Welcome to the panel discussion of a marine bio session of the World Ocean Forum. And now we are ready for the panel discussion. We invited all the speakers and moderator who will have a discussion on today's topic. And please proceed with the discussion, Mr. Moderator. So we have listened to 5 presentations and the podium is arranged. So I'm going to invite 5 panelists, 5 speakers and 1 panelist. And we will take questions on the presentations first. And today's topic is the AI-based research and the application on which we will have a discussion. And I'm going to introduce our panelists. First, we have Professor Jeong Ro from PostTech. And from InSilicon, we have General Director Kang Byung-chul. And we have Professor Nomina of Hanyang University. And we have Mr. Kim Seung-eun, CEO of Oncobics. And we have Chief Researcher Choi Jung-hyun from Mabic. And on behalf of the government, from the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, we have a senior researcher, Bang No-baek. And Mr. Bang No-baek received a degree from Chungang University, and now he's working at the Marine and Fisheries Bio-resouces Division of the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries. Please give our panelists a big hand. And before starting the discussion, I will introduce some rules. So on the 5 presentations, I'm not so sure about the timekeeping, but I would like to give 1 question to each speaker. And after listening to their answers, we will talk about the measures to expedite the AI-based marine biotechnology researches. And afterward, in the general discussion, we will take some questions from the audience. And now I will give a question to the first speaker, Professor Jeong.
So you've mentioned about synthetic biology and on how to produce the value-added feedstock in a large scale. So what's the challenges in doing that? And for the second speaker, you've mentioned about digital peptide design, how we can secure the reliability of that technology and the usability of that aspect. And for the third speaker, my question is, among AI technology, if we use deep learning to assess the protein functionality, you've mentioned that possible. But as mentioned before, Mabic has established Moby-Dick system. What kind of suggestion that you can give to us to have more useful data in Moby-Dick? For the fourth speaker, so the compound that AI suggested and the mechanism that it has, how was the reliability of that can be secured? And if we use AI in the new medicine, is there any ethical issue or legal issue out of that? So if so, how you're going to respond to it? That's my question to you. And for Mr. Choi, data standardization and interoperability, do you have any strategy to secure those two? And how Moby-Dick can contribute to the marine data set? And if you have a use case, please mention about that. So let's go from Mr. Jeong first. Thank you for the good question. So synthetic biology, if I tell you about the exact goal or ultimate goal, it is to engineer the living organism in the way we want. So in order to edit that or engineer the living organism, we need to edit the genes. By editing the genomic or genes, then we can make the living organism to function in a certain way, and that's the ultimate goal of synthetic biology. And many other speakers mentioned this point, and the content they have touched upon is multi-omics data or metagenomic data, or data that exists in the nature. So it's about assessing the data of living things. And synthetic biology needs those data in order to accurately engineer the organism. So the AI technology that we need is to have ample data first. After securing those ample data, then we will have to analyze those data, and that's the second step. And all the technology mentioned by other speakers, that should come first in order to achieve the ultimate goal of synthetic biology, which is to engineer the living organism. Thank you for your detailed answer. And second speaker.
By using AI technologies, we identify peptides. And in other words, how can we secure reliability of the result? And there are complex implications, whether the functionality is correct and secure, and is it possible to produce them? AI cannot cover everything at once because there are remaining challenges. However, based on our experience, the prediction of a functionality is quite accurate now, as covered in the presentation of Mr. Che. If we have proper data source, just as Mobidic, it will be possible to comprehensive collect data, and based on the data, we can apply them to artificial intelligence to increase reliability. So learning shouldn't be performed too much. Without that, AI could give us a proper answer through a proper level of learning. And we are making our efforts to optimize the reliability. So for sure, there is a challenge. However, in certain fields, we have achieved a certain level of accuracy and reliability.
And Professor No, when you plan out for MABIC, I had a chance to collaborate with your institution. And currently, you have accumulated a large amount of data, and you are the model case of collecting those data. And I think it would be great if I could actively utilize those data as well. As mentioned before, deep learning depends on two goals in training the algorithm. First is learning the data. And based on that data learning, so the algorithm tries to identify the task based on data learning. So first, general data accumulation is very important in order to serve that. For example, I've mentioned about the functionality of protein and enzyme. In order to accurately understand those two, then the experiment will have to be conducted as well, aside from learning the data. If there is a chance to study or train the algorithm to learn about similar functionality, then there will be synergy effect. First is the need for accumulating general data. And second is task-specific data that is linked with experiment. And those two will have to go hand in hand to have a synergy effect with the deep learning algorithm in order to predict the functionality. Thank you. So taking your tips and suggestion, so it has only been 10 years since we launched this organization, MABIC, but we have around 590,000 data on marine resources, and we have the Moby Dick program. So whenever you want to use it, then you can access the program.
Mr. Kim, please. And the history of drug
using
design
AI
with
in drug
AI
development is not that
is
long.
very short, and the
one of
biggest
the biggest
challenge
limitations is that,
is
although there are drugs developed
that
through
now
AI
it is
that
at
have
the
entered clinical
clinical
trials, the number of products that have actually made it that far is still relatively small. This is a significant limitation. In our case, we use AI models, such as ChatGPT, to generate potential compounds, and then we synthesize these compounds in-house. After synthesizing, we collect screening data to compare and see if there is any correlation between the AI's predictions and the actual effectiveness of the drug. We put a lot of effort into gathering this data. Most of the data we use comes from FDA-approved drugs or drugs frequently mentioned in scientific papers. As we accumulate more data, we believe that the design will align more closely with the actual efficacy of the drugs. Another thing I would like to mention is that AI-driven drug development is also closely related to animal protection laws. When conducting animal experiments, many of us, myself included, feel ethical concerns. For example, I personally feel distressed when I see tests being conducted on animals, such as dogs. If AI predictions become more accurate, I believe AI could help us reduce the need for animal testing, which would align well with future animal protection laws. Additionally, from a legal perspective, one of the most important aspects of AI-generated drug structures is patentability. No matter how effective the drug might be, if we cannot secure a patent for it, the development would essentially be for nothing. This is a significant challenge. But I believe that by combining human expertise with AI validation, we can achieve excellent outcomes. Thank you. Lastly, I would like to thank senior researcher Choi Young-in for asking an excellent question. As for strategies for data standardization, researchers and users collect different types of data. Therefore, we need to create a platform that can encompass all the data from various researchers. It's also essential to standardize the data fields to ensure that all necessary data entries are included for effective usage.
Want short format because they need to type in all those data, but for the user side, they need more data in the format, so striking the balance between the two is very important. The Moby Dick contribution to the marine biology data currently is 0 because it has only been for a short while. But previously we had MAGIC program, the MAGIC Center. So we accumulated data through that center, and with that research project, for example, when you find a toxin in the jellyfish, then that can contribute to finding new material, and that led to another new research project. I think that's a contribution that we have made through data. And data center, I think, is one big platform. Currently, we only have the raw data, and we only collect the raw data. But in going forward, as Professor No presented or Mr. Park suggested, all those research results can be stored in Moby Dick to create a virtuous cycle. That's the goal that we have. Thank you.
이렇게 질문과 답변을 듣다 보니
So having this discussion, I felt that today's topic is AI-based marine biotechnology research. I believe that we are already doing very well with that. And now we are going to begin the discussion in full swing on today's topic. But due to a time constraint, I will give 2 to 3 minutes to each panelist. And I believe that we can just follow the order of a presentation once again. At last, Mr. Park, you can give the government position and you can give the summary of all the discussions and presentations we had today. Please.
오늘 전체적으로 일관된 주제가
Today we talked about AI technology
얼마나
and how AI plays an important role in marine biotechnology. As President Choi mentioned before, bio industry can be categorized into red, white, and green. And each industry, in order to be commercialized, the data should be secured first. For that, AI technology will contribute to finding out the information that we haven't discovered so far. So first is securing the database and how to manage the marine data.
예.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kang, please. So today we talked about the artificial intelligence and biotechnology. And data is the fuel for AI, and I want to focus on data. So after the informatization era, we are witnessing the digital transformation, and AI is part of that. And we get the Excel format of research outcome, and everything is digitalized. But why do we talk about the digital transformation once again? We have to ask this question ourselves. So the information from the previous era and the information from digital transformation era are different in terms of users. So we have to make data which could be used by artificial intelligence, and that is the key to digital transformation. So when we develop new types of data in the future, it should be usable from the perspective of artificial intelligence. In that case, AI could be our assistant and our companion. But if my data is not usable for artificial intelligence, you have to compete against AI. So I believe that we have to develop data which could be used by AI. That is important.
뭐 학교 다닐 때만
So when I was a school student, so I talked about industrial age and then digital age. And you've pointed out that we are living again a digital transformation era. The term is not that different, but there's a big difference in reality. So the future industry, which is about marine bio industry, I think there will be a huge synergy effect out of that. I completely agree with you. As we enter the big data AI era, information sharing and cooperation are all the more important because it's not just data, it's big data. It's something that cannot be done by individual only. So we'll have to have that mindset that we all share that information. And it's not just about data. It's about performance and function. So data and experiment should be closely combined to have a better synergy effect. So sharing and cooperation will have to be maximized to use AI and big data well.
사실은
In fact, AI technologies are value neutral. So when we utilize such technologies, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, it could be a double-edged sword for us. So bio industry is dealing with life, so there must be ethical issues. But if we combine these value natural technologies, there could be a huge gap in what we do. And we have to look at who the user is, as Mr. Kang just mentioned. So thank you for the answer. And Mr. Kim, please. So at Seoul National University, they recommended this book. I believe that some of you have already read the Guns and Germs and Steel. And it took me 3 months to read this book. It is a very thick book. And these 3 items contributed to the development of humankind. I believe that most of you agree that AI will be another item following these 3 items. So about a decade ago, we didn't expect the smartphones to penetrate into our lives this much. And I was reluctant to adopt the smartphones in the past because I could memorize hundreds of phone numbers. However, now, sometimes I even cannot remember my wife's phone number. So AI is advancing, but human memory could go down accordingly. But AI will be surely in our daily lives. So it will remain in our daily lives in the future.
평균세
So Gone, Germ, and Still. I know that book, but forgot for a while. The human went through thousands of years through human civilization, and I think AI can further accelerate that development. So data collection and management system is legalized by the central government, but in order for that to work, the competent authority and data management authority will have to closely cooperate, and researchers will have to change their mindset. When I first began the Moby Dick project and when I met with the researchers, they didn't know that the data collection and management was legalized. So I had to pay visits to all the researchers so that they change their mindset to share their research data. So I'll do my best to contribute to that shift. AI recently has developed rapidly, even to the speed that human cannot follow. So in the past, when there was no data, then AI couldn't have developed this far. So related to the marine field, producing quality data is important, and by refining the data that has been collected for 1,000 years, then we can use it for AI. If the data is not refined, then the outcome that comes out of that AI algorithm will be useless. So as mentioned, we need to digitalize the data and refine the data at the same time. So related to marine industry, there's a lot of data related to human body across the world, but in the marine field, the data is relatively small in amount. So we need to have a more R&D project to secure the volume of data.
우리들 이제 구슬이 있으면 말이라도 끼어야 보배를 하듯.
So we have to use the scattered data in a systematic way. If we succeed in utilizing them, there will be a great synergy effect. So we had diverse topics, but at the end of the day, what matters the most is policy. So we have someone from the government. So Mr. Park, you can explain the government position on this topic, and you can give out the closing remarks on this session. Good afternoon. We talked about the biotechnology and AI, and thank you for the invitation first. And bio and AI were discussed by the government in the form of AI secretary and biosecretary. So it is the key topics the government is dealing with, and the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries is carrying out relevant projects. So we talked about genomics, and from 2018 to 2022, we had a larger scale project and we identified 134 materials, and we are going to use a peptide for new medicinal products in the future. And we are going to develop new materials which could be used for the treatment of dementia. And the ministry has conducting various R&D activities, but we focused on synthetic biology. By listening to the experts, synthetic biology specialists say that synthetics can solve everything, but the experts of natural products say that we need to deal with the natural products first before moving on to synthesis. And marine resources have higher barriers for access. That is why the government would like to provide additional support. And we have to identify natural products first. So we will use the Marine Biobank operated by MABIC to strengthen the identification. And we are going to build the service infrastructure tailored to each activity. And the Ministry of Science and ICT announced a new plan to have 7 offices. And the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries would serve as one of the offices. And for the past 20 years, the R&D investment of the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries were focused on green and white bio. That is why last year and this year, we started to invest in red bio as well. So the support will go into red bio too. So through this expansion, we will reach the outcome with feasibility so that we can build a biofoundry of the ministry. So last but not least, the ministry is now responding to the transition into the bioeconomy. So we are going to invest in this field.
So currently, marine biology status was summarized by Mr. Peck. So we took the initial step, but we will have to further stimulate the research on red bio as well. From that aspect, so we need to focus on applying AI to the high value added field. So this concludes our panel discussion. We only have short amount of time, but thank you for listening through. So I'll give the chance to the floor. If you have questions or any inquiries or comments, please ask. So the floor is yours. Any question from the floor?
네, 잠시 자리에서 손을 들어주시면
If you raise your hand, we'll pass the microphone to you. Please identify yourself, your affiliation, and your name first. Thank you for all the insights. I'm not an expert, but I'm working at a shipbuilding company, and I'm a technical advisor. My name is Jeong Ro. So related to bio, my son-in-law is a professor of post-tech. So I have heard some things about marine bio, but my knowledge is not that deep. So my question is, You've mentioned engineering the living organism and editing the gene. According to what layman knows, there will be some ethical issues and legal issues if we do so. So I would like to know to which extent it is allowable without posing some ethical questions. And second, we have covered a lot of topics today. And to summarize, you've mentioned about AI, big data, and ChatGPT. And all those were linked. When utilizing those technology, so we train the algorithm, and the output of that algorithm is utilized by us. So it is all about utilizing the data. But those data is something made by humans. And humans always discover new fields and develop new things. If we are to use the data that come out of AI and ChatGPT, I'm not sure whether they can generate new things, completely new things, just like that comes out of human creativity. So the first question about the synthetic biology, so I hold my mic. You've mentioned you knew nothing, but you pose a very critical question. So the ultimate goal, as I mentioned before, of the synthetic biology is to engineer the living organism or re-edit their gene. So the newly created living organism will have to be utilized within the control of humans in order to prevent a negative impact to the ecosystem. For that, we will have to set up the policy barriers, and we have established the regulations for that. So the controllable living organism are the things that can be used in the manufacturing plant. And after their use, they shouldn't be discarded in the environment. So we have that regulation to prevent those. Even though we engineer a new living organism, we'll have to prove the safety in order to commercialize. For that, we have a safety assessment regulation to prove that aspect. So in going forward, if we apply the synthetic biology to plant or to the currently living organism, the application is quite limited. So when using plants, then genomic information shouldn't be released without control. And again, the principle is to put it under our control. So when we re-engineer the plant gene, then those plants shouldn't be reproduced. So that's the first principle. The goal is to march into a positive field using this synthetic biology technology. At the same time, we have many concerns. So we need to manage it through setting up a policy hurdles and barriers. And we have made that effort, so you don't have to worry about that.
아마 제가 이해하기로는 지금 AI
So in my understanding, AI and big data and ChatGPT, they all use existing data for training. And how can we develop new data? So that's the second question. So is there someone who could answer the question? So let me add on to that. So when it comes to synthesis biology, BioFoundry was briefly mentioned, and BioFoundry pursues so to do better design. As I mentioned at the beginning, we need accurate information and data, but the information we have is based on the existing database. And the database is just a combination of existing information. If we use that for training and design, the outcome, the data would not be sufficient. But for synthetic biology, to develop new rules for design, we have to generate big data. But to do that, we need the infrastructure, which is BioFoundry. So based on the existing database, so in a short period of time, we have to be able to generate big data, and that big data should be mounted on the database so that it can be used for new rounds of learning. So, design, build, test, learn should make a loop, and it should be based on the infrastructure called BioFoundry. So it is not a simple matter. So have we answered your question? So do you have any other questions? I believe that we are way behind our schedule, but I think we can take one last question.
없으신가요?
Maybe no question? Then we can wrap up the discussion here. So we are reaching the end of the discussion. So it was a short session, but it was a very difficult topic to discuss. But we had an in-depth discussion with experts from different fields. And before starting the session, I could feel that I'm not familiar with artificial intelligence. However, it is already in our daily lives, but I think I have a better understanding of AI after this session. So AI already is living with us, and how can we use it in the marine bio field? And we talked about various ways to do that. And through this kind of discussion, I believe that we can identify new growth engine of Korea. And the marine bio industry of Korea could play a more important role on the global stage, hopefully. And last but not least, I would like to thank the organizer once again for putting together this session. And I hope that the 18th World Ocean Forum will be held successfully. So I wish a meaningful and informative forum for all of the participants. And thank you very much.
네, 이렇게 해서 패널 토의를
This concludes the panel discussion. So I would like to thank Director Choi from MABIC for moderating the session. And once again, please give all of our speakers